your greatest source of wisdom? How do you go about your day learning and gaining wisdom? What do you mean by wisdom? It's information that's lived in layers that allows transformation. When you think about a woman who is filled with wisdom, you think of her as a mastery of possession of a quality. She's received information and she's practiced the application of that information. So how do we go about our day gaining wisdom? We have forgotten as a culture that people, women, are a great source of wisdom. How? Stories teach us about the world, people, and about ourselves. The greatest truths in history has been told in stories. So what does that look like? It means that we go about our day listening and gaining wisdom from people's stories. What does that require of us? It means that we have to walk into our day doing 3 things. Number 1, we pause. We pause. Because if we don't pause, we miss out on the wisdom of the moment. And because we live in a world that is going, doing, pausing is like stopping a hurricane. But without pausing, we miss out on wisdom, on opportunities to gain from what we can learn from people and at every moment. Number 2, how do we learn from women's stories is how we actually learn to listen. It's so basic. I'm not teaching you anything that is a phenomenon. Common sense, not common practice. When you start observing and going into parties, and I want you to start observing people's listening skills. And I want you to be aware of people's attention to people or lack thereof. Okay? So you walk in, you train yourself to pause, to train yourself to listen, and number 3, to train yourself to observe. Observe meaning you're gathering data, you're gathering information, not judging, but gaining. You're collecting and you're processing. You see, when we live our lives, going about our daily life, pausing, listening, and observing 1, 2, and 3, with every person we meet, you're going to be a walking wisdom. Because we live in an information world, we read a ton, we see a ton, we engage a lot of things that are coming at us. But one thing we have forgotten are people's stories and the wisdom that we can learn from their stories. We're not listening. We're not pausing long enough to engage the layers of who people are. That's why we're steeped into judgment. We're not really getting to know people and their stories. We are getting robbed of opportunities to learn from the beauty of people. See, people are so fascinating. They always have been, and they've never stopped being fascinating. There's no same person in this world. There's only one. People are fascinating. We've just stopped being fascinated because nobody is teaching us some of the basic ways, habits, or training to gain from people. So let's get back on track and do some of the most basic work of how to be human. You walk in every single day and you give yourself a mantra. Pause, listen, and observe. Pause, listen, and observe. You go, you walk out downstairs, whether if you're roommates or your children or you live by yourself. You walk in and you prepare yourself to do pause, listen, and observe. You walk into work, That's what you say to yourself. You repeat and you train your mind and you repeat it. And you repeat it to yourself all day long until it becomes a habit. This habit alone is going to transform the way you live, but I will tell you, it will also transform other people's lives because they are so thirsty to be heard, to feel as though they're important enough and valuable enough that you are gaining wisdom from who they are and their stories. Let's pause, listen, and observe, and begin to learn from each other's story.